thing called enterprise excellence. And a little bit different shift from the way we thought as operational excellence people over the last few years. If you think from a business transformation, you all see these word clouds before, right? And if you think for business transformation, it's a change, it's the expertise, it's the capability, external focus, prioritization, innovation. Funny for me as an OpEx person, optimization is one of the smaller feedback. And I think it was missing something. And the missing something is transformation is all about getting to new ideal results. And what do we know as good OpEx people? If you define those ideal results, we should be able to measure them to see how we're doing along the way. So I want to explore with you, if we start to think about things from that end result, I'm trying to transform my business to move in this new ideal direction. What are the things we really need to do to build that model and be highly successful? So I think the first thing it does is you need to go back and do a little history. I'm kind of one of these folks, I like to look at data and facts. There's some nice work here from the Boston Consulting Group, as well as some of these other consulting groups. Most business transformations, when you look at it, large proportion is nothing but organizational change. And you might challenge yourself, is that truly a transformation? Well, maybe for the people affected it is. But what I find interesting in this next is financial. Then it's some kind of operational challenge or issue, followed by turnaround and restructuring, meaning they've got some kind of competitive pressures out in the marketplace. Kind of funny, the fifth in the line is growth. And then beyond that is a whole series of other things. So it was interesting to look at that. And oh, by the way, companies that go through transformations, it isn't a single event. There are a lot of cases where it's multiple transformations those companies go through. And I want to kind of lay that framework over the next couple slides because I think that really feeds into us as operational excellence. How can we integrate and be an enabler and be a key player in those transformations? The other thing you might think is you're forced to transformation because you're a bottom performer. What I found interesting is in the Boston Consulting study, companies that are truly leaders in their market actually step forward to transform before they have to as well. And so when you think about that, that's really interesting. All of them are impacted by declining performance as a major driver. Many, though, are looking at really improving performance. And you see the best-in-class players is moving to that next level. So keep that in mind as we go along here. If you look at transformations, though, and I think every presentation I've heard this week, what percent of transformations are successful? Somewhere in that low 20s and 30s at best. That 60-70% failure rate. And when you look through a lot of the analysis from this, and this is McKinsey and a couple other groups, what you find is it gets to things that are very interesting. Management behavior does not support the change. We've all talked about that. Also, employee resistance to the change. Well, obviously I'm an employer and I don't see my managers reacting the way I thought they would. Why would I then be on board for what that transformation is? So that kind of flows over into the challenges. The transformation was organized into clear structure with readily understandable sections. Look at this. When you've got a very clear direction, it's communicated, the employees are engaged, look how successful those transformations are. Versus as you go down that chart, the less well you communicate, you structure what that transformation is about, you set that mission and vision, you lay the key elements in place. Remember again, good OpEx folks, we think about what are those ideal results we're trying to deliver. That's when you really start to see those are those successful transformations. They bring those pieces into the process. And then now if you go down to the bottom part then is what are those things that killed, really destroyed those transformations along the way. The number one, almost a threefold impact, lack of clearly defined or achievable milestones and objectives to measure progress. I think Deb and Key Bank was showing a very good example where they had very clear objectives and measurable things they did along the way. That's critical for transformation. A lack of commitment by senior management, that's kind of a strange one, but I think it really gets to they've got to change their roles and their approaches for the organization, and they aren't getting there. Employee resistance, poor communication. These top four represent over 90% of that, why those transformations fail. Now let's go to page 2. Let's talk about us as OpEx leaders and how we're part of that process. So if you look at it from an operational excellence view, what are some of the success measures that we could do that really helps the business focus? And how did we get started? Well, if you look at this, it's still kind of interesting. The number one reason people go to OpEx is what? Cost savings. That's still a primary driver, followed very closely by efficiencies and throughput. And then you hit customer satisfaction. Geez, isn't it funny we talk customer all the time? But it's cost, efficiency. Oh, we should think about that customer too. And then ultimately you start to get down to things like top line revenue growth, improve customer satisfaction, reduce operational risk. Things that make you go, And then if you look at the top investment areas for last year, so this is the most recent data, where is the money going and how is operational excellence part of that investment? What I see very interesting is you were in 2013 and 14. Notice it was in data and analytics, a little work around some process mapping and workflow automation, strategic elements here. Not a huge change in 2014 and 2015, almost the same pattern. But look at the big shift in the last couple of years. What do you see now starting to come into play? Big hits. Behavior of my employees. How well engaged are they as part of that process? Strategic leverage of OpEx to really drive my strategic business transformation. I think they're actually reaching out to us. And they're saying, guys, we need you as an enabler for our success. So I'm going to walk you through a different way for us to think as OpEx leaders. And hopefully you'll start to, at the end of this presentation, we can have either good dialogue, we've got a great panel discussion coming up, right, Brian, where we can talk some more questions along the way. But again, I kind of highlighted the very interesting areas now where OpEx can start to be a whole part of that business transformation when we talk about that. Now, if you look at a traditional model, I call this a Lean Six Sigma iceberg model. Where have we been with OpEx over the last few years? And whether you're a Six Sigma guy like me, I'm an old GE Master Black Belt Welsh Year guy, and then I became a Lean Six Sigma, and then I went to Process Excellence, I went to Operational Excellence, now I guess I'm a Transformation Operational Excellence person, right? We've always stuck here. We've leveraged technology, tools, and techniques, and we've focused on processes. And don't get me wrong, we've been really successful with that. You can have dramatic hits for business, right? We all have great examples of that. The best-in-class companies, though, recognize that below there, if I don't link this with my strategy and alignment, if I don't make sure my leadership is part of that process, and if my behaviors and my engagement of my people and workforce aren't aligned with that, I'll never get the big hit that I could get from all of this investment. So when you look at it, traditionally, our deployment is focused on improving processes, driving the business where it's been. I think the next level opportunity is integrating strategy and business transformation. And we become an enabler for that success. I see a bunch of smiles around the audience here. Okay? Is there a model out there that can integrate these elements? So think about that. These are key elements. Let me walk you through what that model could look like. First of all, the only model I know that really brings strategy and alignment together is Hoshin. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can call it, but at the end of the day, you've got to create what? The leader sessions, you lay out what those key elements are if you're planning in business, you flow it down through the organization, you bring it back, and you go up and down, and after a while, it starts to sink in, I guess we're serious. And you can start to lay out there your 1 year, your 3-year plans. Your 3-year plans always need that 1-year plan to say, am I on track to deliver that future state I'm trying to get to? How many of you guys are working with Hoshin Kanri strategic planning? Just very few. My answer is go on the website, look it up. You need to educate your leaders. How can you behave and be a successful player in transformational change if you don't know what the strategy is? And it isn't laid out on what those key ideal results are we're trying to get to. Man, right, Brian, I see you shaking your head. Big opportunity. But this is only the first part. Remember, below that iceberg, there was a second key element. What was that? Starts with the letter L.
Leadership.
Leadership. Well, I'm a lean leadership kind of guy. I think the one thing Toyota did is they got it right. Those true north values. I want managers to stop being managers and become leaders. Leaders are coaches and mentors. They go and see. They work with the team. They respect their employees. Ooh, there's a tough one. Now, what does all this mean, though? You got to help leaders become that. Commitment to self-development. A lot of presentations I've seen this week are all around how we're helping grow the skills and capability of our leaders. That's our job, guys. We got to be in there with them. But that alone won't get you there. How do you help them coach and develop others? It's not easy stuff. I've had managers look at me, Rick, I don't know how to do this. One manager once told me when we finally got his teams truly empowered, he said the toughest thing in the world I had to do was let go. Because I thought my job was, I'm the technical leader, I got here, grew my skills, proved my worth, I got to always be in the middle for success of my team. And what he learned was, no, you've got to be there to grow your team. So hopefully when you get promoted, the team survives. But then it's that daily Kaizen. We introduced at Bristol-Myers the concept of gimbal walks. We all talked about this. And I got to tell you guys, we had to restart it a year later. Because management thought it was simply, I go down on the floor, do my check mark, check the box, I was down on the floor. Of course, what are they doing when they're down on the floor?
Talking.
They're talking among themselves, they're on their iPhone, they're on a pad, they're not paying attention, and yet they say, I was down on the floor. What do you do in a really good gimbal walk?
You're engaged.
Yeah, right, you're engaged. What does engaged mean? You're listening first. You're asking questions. I had some leaders go down with a clipboard thinking it was an audit. What do you think those folks on the floor say? Oh my God, we're in trouble now. I've never seen them on the floor in the first place, and now they're coming down with clipboards. They need help though. And you'd be amazed at the response of the employees on the floor when you build that leadership engagement. Because they're thirsty for it. How many people talk empowerment with their workforce? Come on, like, God, very few hands going up. Why not? What does it mean when we empower someone? We're going to let them be responsible and drive. And yet they look to us to give that nod to say, yes, you can go try that out. That's really, to me, what daily Kaizen is all about. And look at that. You're building it from your self-development of your leaders. You give them the right skills. You help understand how to coach and mentor. They're actually, during those Kaizen events, they're there at the end to give the big thumbs up and support. Last but not least, though, we're looking to our leaders to give us the vision and alignment to what those critical goals are. Okay? So that's that leadership component. There was one last piece under that iceberg that we really need to look hard at. Behaviors and engagement. Behaviors and engagement. And it is all about purpose, process, people. The ideal results we're trying to get, you got to align your purpose with your process. You got to engage your people with your purpose, and you've got to have your people and process drive improvements. And that's the model I want to quickly walk you through. It's called the Shingo model. How many folks are familiar with Shingo? Those that don't have your hand up, hold your hand up now. Go out on the website, look it up, this is it. They have 10 critical guiding principles and values, and look at it, it's pretty fundamental. What enables my culture, what drives continuous improvement, how to align my enterprise, how do I drive results. And in the model, what they've looked at is a balance. To me, it's the way we have to start to think a little differently. So it first starts with this. This is where we've been with OpEx for quite a while. We have results we try to deliver, we have tools and techniques and methodology, and we focus on our process and systems. That's been our success to date. That's traditional. What are really great companies? And you get great results here, don't get me wrong. Nothing at all wrong with that. But really great companies add in the culture piece. We've all talked about this, where the leaders and managers and associates that make your culture are engaged. And then, do we all influence culture in the same way, though? No. You got to tune it for that. So, what you have to have is guiding principles. What are those values and behaviors that I want to see from my leadership all the way down to the floor that's going to drive my culture that then feeds into my OpEx and continuous improvement that really delivers ideal results. Cool, huh? Pretty cool. And this is kind of the model behind it. You can go out on their website and see it. Again, we love to talk about KPIs. I want to start to measure, are the right behaviors occurring as much as are we focused on delivering the right results? Does that make sense? What a different way to look at things. And on top of that now, if you really have that, you need to change your systems and processes from a behavior view as much as you do from a process view. And then here's kind of a simple view. This will be posted for you. I was supposed to give I was backed up for workshops on Tuesday and they didn't need me. So please grab a folder over here. It's got a lot of this stuff in it. Take 2 if you want. I just don't want to lug all those back with me. But it actually highlights this for you, how these pieces come together. And so I got a couple closing thoughts here. First is an example. Again, I was with Bristol Myers running their OpEx program for the last 4.5 years. Bristol was looking at speed to market. How do we start to change our R&D mindset and get faster and faster to the market? The challenge we were having is we were seeing our business was growing so fast, we had to produce 5 times as much in our laboratories, existing laboratories, just to keep up with our pipeline. And you don't think we're going to hire people to do that. It's how do you change your systems and processes. At the same time, our cycle times had to go down. I won't tell you how bad they were, but they actually had to go down. And then last but not least, we had fixed facilities. So you can imagine this. We're telling a lab that already has troubles, okay, we're going to do 5 times as much in your lab? What do you think you're looking at going, you're kidding me, how are we supposed to do that? So we pulled together the OpEx team. We moved from a very traditional, sequential approach to things to start to layer in where you run engineering runs, you learn from along the way, you rebuild your process, you rethink your confirmations. We were very, very successful with this. This was presented at the San Diego conference back in December. Dramatic results for our company. We did it by driving KPIs. So for example, here's the 4 key behavior elements that Bristol says is the foundation of our new business. Passion, innovation, accountability, and speed. That's all nice words. How do you measure passion? Well, one example is, I'm just too busy is a absolute no longer acceptable. So if you walk into a leader's room and they're there and you have a problem, what do you expect to happen if we truly have passion? They deal with it on the spot with you. They actually take some time, put aside what they were working on, because you're really helping drive the business. That's where their job is. Look at innovation. Have I challenged the status quo? We want to see real-world examples of where you've driven that difference. And again, the one I love here is accountability. We all talk accountability, right? We get it hammered into us. But the real essence of accountability from a leadership view is, I'm accountable for the success of my teams. What have I done to make them successful? Now, this doesn't work in a vacuum either. You got to have your KPIs too. So obviously timelines, performance, reduction of facility downtimes, all that became critical elements. And we've had dramatic, multi-million-dollar and almost 90% reductions in cycle time response. Last but not least, you do need to measure things. I'm an old GE guy from over the years. Some may recognize this old 9-block view. The idea here is when you get to your performance reviews, you start to look at how well your people are doing. If you really believe it's all about not just delivering exceptional KPIs and business results, it's how you deliver them. Why aren't we measuring ourselves that way? Why are we rewarding and recognizing people? Your best-in-class change leaders are who? They always deliver, if not exceed, what you're looking for in results, and they do it as a model of the behaviors. You go do a 360 feedback, and what do you hear about these folks, Emery? That guy's my leader. I'd follow him wherever he wants to go, or her. Powerful stuff. But it also helps you too is, suppose you got someone sitting here. They're not bad on their behaviors. They pretty much deliver on performance. The question then is, where do we want to move them? Do we want to grow them here? Do we want to grow them here? Or do we want to grow them here? And I won't talk about it, but there certainly is the area where we're not quite making the cut. How do we get from here? And that's kind of it. Think about integrating your KPIs, your behaviors, as much as your KPIs, and measure them. And what am I suggesting? Put them on your dashboards. Get rid of the 30 or 40 or 50 KPIs, get down to the basic, 12 critical ones, add in another dozen KPIs, you're going to have a very successful organization. Thank you.